Amanda,
And I'm Mel.
and this is the Road Back Home podcast. Hi, Tammy.
Hey, Amanda.
Well, you're very welcome to the Road Back Home podcast. You are our very first guest, and who better to be my first guest than you?
Aw, I'm very honored. I'm sorry
Mhm.
not to meet Mel, but I feel like I know her from listening and from the stories that you told me over the years and just getting to know like where she's
Yeah.
at. So I'm happy that she's on this road and I look forward to meeting her another time.
Yeah, and anyone who has been paying attention to me over the years will definitely have heard and seen your name popping up several times, several like obsessive times. I'm kind of like your unofficial stalker. No, I'm not. But I've often referred to you as my recovery angel. It's kind of how I think of you. You're the woman who shone the light on this path for me, and I was just thinking that we are about 8 years in each other's lives now.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm so grateful. I mean, thanks to our friend Erin.
Yes,
Yes,
we
she
were yes, she match made us.
I've
Yeah.
been match made with a lot of women in recovery, and you're one of them. My sponsor is another one. I didn't pick my sponsor. I was kind of matched with her and worked out great. So
Mhm.
sometimes I need to listen to that higher power or to that kind of voice, that inner voice. It's like, that's the way. Even
Yeah.
if I don't fully know why that is, I've come to realize that over the years. Yeah.
Yes. And as first of all, let me get out of the way. Congratulations on your, not get it out of the way, but you know what I mean. Congratulations on 10 years of continuous sobriety.
You. Thank you.
Like,
I got to pick a shiny chip out of the box the other day, and it was a gold one. And I was like, well, of course it is.
oh my goodness.
So I'm very happy. Yeah. In the 12-step program, you go and you get a chip, and then that same week, if you go to more meetings, you still get more chips, or you announce yourself just to show others that it can be done. And so I've gone to a couple meetings, and I will recycle some of those chips and give them back. But this one I'm going to keep, the gold one I'm going to keep.
Oh God, well, I'm so, what is it like? What is it like to have, what's the 10 years like? What's the experience?
Hmm. I've been thinking about that a lot. It feels, well, home is my word for the year, Amanda. And I went and saw The Wizard of Oz this week. I know that there's a lot of recovery themes in The Wizard of Oz,
Hmm.
and more than I remembered. So I saw it on the big screen. And what it's like is kind of just coming back home to yourself. I don't feel like it does feel like a very big deal. But I remember my 1 year of sobriety, like I wanted bells and whistles and a parade, and I got upset because my former husband didn't come and see me get a chip. And I was doing it for him, for my son. And now there's just a huge difference. I just do it for me. And I
Yeah.
quietly went to a meeting Monday night, and they asked for birthdays. You raise your hand, and that's it. And it just felt like I'm not doing it for anyone else, that this is just how I live my life now. And it feels very solid and good, but I have to um, maintain my spiritual condition every day. And if I
Yes.
don't do that, then I'm going to fall back. And so that's important to do, like reset my sobriety every day.
Yes.
So yeah, it feels good. It feels solid, but it also feels like I only have today to really stay focused on. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I heard somebody recently say that sobriety is like a subscription and you have to renew it every day.
that's right. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's what
it
I
like,
do, like with my morning
mm,
routine and making conscious contact with my higher power and
mm,
reading the daily reflections. Or I do so many things before I even get out of bed, Amanda. It's just like bed is my, what is it called? Like meditation. Like I'll do my meditation horizontal. You don't have to do it perfectly. That's what I think for me at this stage of my recovery. In the beginning, I thought it had to be all perfect and it had to be
oh,
just so, and you had to check the boxes. And I was trying to get the gold stars, and that's just part of my healing that I know that I can give those gold stars to myself now, right? But I just I don't know,
yeah.
every day that I wake up, it's just for me. and I don't have to do it for anybody else. Other people benefit from my sobriety, I think, my emotional sobriety especially.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just up to me. It's something quiet and for me. And I don't know, I'm very
Hmm.
proud of it, but not so
Yeah.
proud that it's like, I think in the beginning I had to be so proud and out loud about it because I was scared. I had a lot more
Yeah.
fear than I have now. And
Yeah.
now I don't, I mean, I have a healthy amount of fear, I guess, but I'm afraid of my mom dying and I'm afraid of some things I can't control, but I
Yeah.
also know I can't control them. So there's just a different mindset. I completely approach things differently now. And when
Yeah.
I don't, I struggle. And then I have to go back to the drawing board with my sponsor with, to start
Yeah.
over again.
What's funny is that when we first met and were introduced, I should say, it was a few years before we met in person. When we first met, you had a podcast with Sandra Primo, and that was the Unruffled podcast. And I was there from the very first, even before the first episode, when you did it on the network. When you did a swap on someone else's pod, like I was there
Oh,
from the
yeah.
very beginning,
Yeah.
and listening and also identifying with you as somebody walking this path, and the creative piece was so resonant to me, and it was just so intoxicating for want of a better word. And it was like I don't know if it was I want that, but I think just listening to you offered me a solution in a way that I didn't actually realize was going to be for me. But then
Mm,
I hit a very dark time and I stopped drinking as a matter of safety. But I felt like I did not feel lost at sea in a way, because I knew that by not drinking, there was lots of us out there, and being so pivotal in that, it kind of like it made the transition quite easy for me.
mm,
And also because it was a safety issue for me, it was just like the switch went off and I was like, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. And I never did the program. I never worked the steps
right.
until we met in Tuscany. I was going to say in France. That's Italy.
Yeah.
It's probably why I
2020,
failed. Yes,
2023. The fall. I was just thinking about
23.
that this morning. Yeah,
Yeah.
2023.
That's probably why I failed geography in school. Like Tuscany, France. No, Tuscany in Italy. And I was on your retreat. And once again, I was in a
Mm,
hole, an absolute hole, but I was clinging on for dear life. I was doing that thing. I was trying to control something,
yeah.
everything maybe. Um, and it's so funny when you're not aware of it, because I guess when you are drowning, you don't want to hear advice. You don't want to see logic. It's just like, let me stay, you're just fighting the current the whole time, and you don't really have the luxury as such of just having a minute to think about it until I reached your retreat.
Mm,
And I turned off my phone and I came off Instagram and I was like, this is it. I'm actually going to retreat on this. And then being around you, Tammy, in that morning ritual we did every morning in the yoga barn, I was just like, and this is what, 7 years in? I
mm,
was like, I want what she has. Like, finally,
mm.
I it's not that I didn't want that all along, but I was once again, the power of your recovery, the strength of your program had an impact on me, and showed me the kind of, what they say is like, it's the despair tinged with hope.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like double-edged sword of, oh, this is so painful. And I'm so like I just don't know where. Anyway, I think no point in me over explaining that. But I came back from that retreat and marched myself into the program, 12
Mm,
step. Now I'm not in the alcohol recovery program. I'm in another program, but it is
mhm.
still the 12 step model.
How
And
brave.
pardon?
How freaking brave.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
open-minded and willingness and all of that stuff, because that takes a lot, Amanda. And
It
sometimes it
really,
takes 7 years or it takes what it takes.
yeah. Well, I guess it had taken a lifetime because what's only becoming clear to me now is that alcohol was part of how I showed up in the world, but the true issue at the source of it wasn't my only coping, it wasn't my main coping. And and then also the self-esteem, the lack of a solid sense of self,
Mhm.
really, which is what the spiritual condition I think probably is that like I am outsourcing the things that unless I learn to cultivate them in myself, I am at the mercy of what's fashionable, what's trendy, what's virtuous, what is, what your opinion is, all these things. And I was dying a death inside.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing. Since I have been working the program, I'm like, oh my God, that's why Tammy uses that language. That's why
Mm,
Tammy says it that way.
mm.
It's like I've
Yeah,
started to
I'm not original.
no, but I was like, I'm starting to understand you even and I'm like, oh my God, I remember when Tammy was not when you were here, because our paths are not identical, obviously.
Right.
But I guess what I'm saying is that like the the guidance is becoming even deeper. Like y- your impact and your recovery's impact on me is
Mm,
becoming even deeper now that I'm working the program that you work.
mm. Well, you're gonna make me cry. It's so beautiful. Like it's hard to explain someone who's adverse to AA because there's dogma and there's patriarchy and it was written by men in the 30s and there's all of that in the Oxford group. Like you could really get into it. And it's also, as a woman, I don't want to just bypass things either and say, like, just accept it and move on. You'll be fine with it. Because that feels like a no, I've been doing that my whole life. I don't want to keep
Yeah.
doing that.
Mhm.
But there is something about being embodied with the principles. And then you start absorbing these things. And so there was women in my life too, Amanda, like they had what I wanted. And it wasn't the car they drove, and it wasn't how they dressed, and it wasn't any of that. It was how they walked into a room and I could hear their shares. And I was like, oh, I want what she has. And what
Mm.
that was the program embedded in them and kind of just becoming part of. So
Yeah.
yeah, in AA, there's like all these phrases and sayings, and nothing's original, but you start to find the things that resonate with you, and that you can start taking and
Mm.
adding to your vocabulary and to your life, and actually just how you act in the world. It's more of your behavior that I'm attracted to, rather than something. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad you're finding a deeper, I'm glad you're seeing it. When I hear women in recovery, like I went to She Recovers, I remember in New York, the first year they did it. They had Glennon Doyle, Elizabeth Vargas, Marianne Williamson, someone else. Oh, Gabby Bernstein. And everybody in the audience is like, yes, yes, these women. And I'm like, they're all speaking 12-step language. So Glennon Doyle is 12-step, and Marianne, no,
Mm.
I don't know about Marianne, but Gabby Bernstein, Elizabeth Vargas. And so, but people could hear them without them saying, hey, this is 12-step, I'm in AA. They could hear it and absorb it and think they were geniuses when I'm just sitting there going, well, I know that language. I know what they're doing. I know what they did to get that. Clearly, they're in a program of recovery that is available to me too. And
Mm.
um, that felt like an easy solution. I know we were going to talk about solutions today, but
Mm.
that felt like oh, I can actually get what they have. I want what they have. And so I know
Mm.
I can go get it, and it'll be my own. It'll be my own version, because nothing is the same.
Yeah.
Nothing is the same for anybody in the program. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, which what's interesting as well for me is that I have learned through the program that I'm actually firmly agnostic, if
Mm,
not atheist, right?
yeah.
Now, I didn't really know that about myself. So it
Hmm.
has actually clarified some things. And it
Yeah.
also, discovering this has made the spiritual piece of it accessible to me, which
They
feels
say
like
that.
yeah,
They say
it's
that
like
if
a
we're steeped,
paradox.
yeah, if we're steeped in religion sometimes, or religious speak, or we've been brought up into the church, we can get really lost in the 12 steps sometimes, because we can get really caught up in that old dogma. But if we are atheist or agnostic leaning, or just don't have a concept of God, sometimes it can be easier for us.
Mm,
I say us, 'cause I'll just say me. Easier for me, it was to just find my way, because I
yeah.
wasn't. kind of having to hack down all these old beliefs and kind of put
Mm-hmm.
these other things aside. I was always seeking, I never found it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
Mm.
I'm so glad that that became clear to you. So much
I
becomes
know.
right
It
in its
really
own.
does. And do you know what? From the outside looking in, I was reactive. I was like higher power, and my mind just conjured up images of Gandalf, and this kind of thing, and it was the supernatural. And of course, my, Catholic Ireland thing was probably getting in the way. And from the outside looking in, it was very easy to kind of pick holes in things, and kind of like what I do as a pastime. I look at, I spend some time in the evenings on YouTube touring mega mansions in Aspen and going, ugh, I wouldn't live there. It's kind of like, it's from the outside in when you're not relating, you're just looking at something. It's easy to diss it. But
Yeah.
what changed it is it's the gift of desperation. I literally could not afford coming off that holiday and that retreat in Tuscany. I
Yeah.
could not afford to ignore it anymore, and I had nowhere else to go. I had tried all the things,
Yeah.
and I did have nowhere else to go with this.
Yeah.
And so there was that, the first maybe 4 months was literally just willingness to let myself hear things, let myself suspend, all the arguments and just be in the room,
Yeah.
and all of that. And then there was a year of what I thought was me working the program, but it was me getting my ass kicked by step one. So which is what that means is almost like it then took me another year to arrive at a point of acceptance. So I arrived desperate, but still defiant.
Yeah.
Um, and the desperation was just enough for me to stay long enough for the defiance to be literally kicked out of me
Yeah.
by my own problems.
But when you said earlier, like, so what they talk about, I hear this, so there's lots of acronyms and little things in the program. So gift of desperation is an acronym for God that I heard early on. And I hated that word. I used to close my eyes and roll my eyes in meetings every time God was mentioned. I
Mm,
don't do that now, but it's interesting.
mm,
I was on the spectrum of I didn't know what I believed. But what
mm,
you said earlier was willingness, and it didn't realize how important that was. And there's an acronym, HOW, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
yeah.
So I grabbed onto that early on, Amanda.
Mm,
But
mm,
what I think needs to be at the end of that acronym, it's not really a word, so it's an R for readiness. Because
mm,
clearly you were ready when you were ready, and we're just not
mm,
ready until then. And so we can
yeah.
be as honest and open and willing as we want to be. I want to move to Spain and win the lottery, but if I don't buy a lottery ticket and if I'm not ready to make that investment, I'm not going to be able to do that. Or if I don't have a passport, I'm not going to be able to get there. So like there
Yeah.
has to be a readiness factor that takes
Mm,
some time, I think, when we're in recovery. You're
yeah.
kind of slowly building up all of these things.
Mm,
I'm having revelations now about step two. I'm working the steps again with a new sponsor. And I just realized where my spiritual experience was. It's taken me 10 years to realize that. That's
mm,
okay. There's no
mm,
one keeping score, and I'm a
mm,
scorekeeper. There's no one keeping
mm,
score other than me. And it's okay to get these revelations. So the fact that it came about when it did for you and that you were
yeah.
ready and that
Yeah.
more keeps getting revealed. And
Yeah.
for me, I could pray to a God that I, didn't believe in the beginning. That felt not great to me, but
Mm,
I see now it got me to where I am now. And now I do have a God of my own understanding and that I don't care if anybody else understands. With
yeah.
peace of mind.
Yeah. The irony for me too is that they're, speaking of the Wizard of Oz, the higher power has been there all along, but I just never took the time because I was too busy arguing with everything to sit down and kind of think to myself. There's two great questions that I found in one of the studies. And for listener, we're not going to spend the whole hour talking about our programs, but I did find these two questions in the studies, and actually it's step two, Tammy.
Yeah. Okay.
And the questions are, Oh goodness, let me find my lovely pages in the journals where I did this. What do I need from a higher power? And what would I like such a power to be and do in my life? And so, the as you say, the timing, I one of the things that I have learned, the hard and painful way is that I have no divine timing is not under my control.
That's right.
And what I have had to endure, because if this was to happen on my timeline, I'd be done. I'd be out of here, I would be probably, wherever, living on an
Yeah.
island somewhere that I bought myself if I had that kind of power. But the divine timing, I've had to sit in the discomfort of step zero for so long, and it was just awful. But anyway, when I answered these two questions, what do I need from a higher power? I just wrote down a bunch of, let's say,
Mm,
words, qualities, love, kindness, acceptance, compassion, and then taking it one step further to say, okay, so let's just imagine, what do I need from a higher power? Let's just imagine that I'm now um compiling, like almost like putting an AI generated vision of a friend. Who's my advisor? Consigliere, as they say in the mob movies. Like if I was to have an advisor, somebody I was to put my life in the hands of,
yeah.
what do they need to be? Oh, they need to be kind. They need to be compassionate. They need to be strong. They need to be wise. They need to offer, they need to be, have humor, humility, all these things. And that's fine. But the next one is, okay, so what would I like such a person to be and do in my life? And I started to put it into action. And
Mm,
one of the first ones was put people and invitations in my path,
mm,
right? And then I
yeah.
was like, oh my God, how long has that been happening? And I
Yeah.
just was not, I was not thankful for it. I was just like, you fucking asshole. I was just like arguing. And meanwhile,
SVPing to the party.
I was oblivious. I was like, Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense. I was like, oh, I'm the dead people. Oh, okay. I had no idea. First of all, I'm almost like I'm 7.5 years sober. I know you 8 years. You were put in my path by Erin, who was put in my path by Orly, who was put in my path.
Yeah.
So it has been there all along, and this is
Yeah.
blowing my mind. And
Mm,
because that clicked into place, I was like, oh yeah, like the universe is showing up for me. There are things happening, like this source offers me affirmation and encouragement, is gracious when I'm wrong. And it's so interesting to me how I have been so attracted over the years to people who offered nothing but criticism
yeah.
and and who were not gracious when I was wrong, and in fact were very condemning. And it's so interesting to me how much time and energy I gave to them. In other words, I was making them my higher power. So it's not
Yeah.
like as if I didn't have one.
Right.
I
Isn't
was,
that an interesting perspective shift, though?
oh my God, it has blown my mind. Like it's not like as if I'm not idolizing something,
Right.
worshiping something, looking for something from something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the source, I have always given it away to, I've delegated to, that which, could not be all these things to me.
Right. Well, I mean, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but when we were sleeping in bed together in Ireland, when I was in Dublin
Thanks,
last,
higher power.
we were sharing a bedroom and we both woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we were like, what are you thinking about? What do you think? I was thinking about God. You were thinking something about God. And then we were talking about how we using AI
Yeah.
as God to
Mm,
write letters to ourselves, I
mm,
believe, something to this effect.
yeah.
So I started using AI as that. And you were like, so have I. And you got out your journal, like we turned on the lights and we're talking about it. And I
Yeah.
was like, what a beautiful way so I also use AI as a way to write letters to me from my mother, which has
Oh,
been just as
lovely.
beautiful as having them write letters from God. But whatever it knows
Mm,
about me in the app that I use, which is Notion, whatever it knows, it's writing me this beautiful, compassionate,
mm,
judgment-free, loving voice. And I think when you shared, you let me read a couple of yours, and like it blew my mind that like that is the God voice I've been looking for. And now
Yeah.
I know AI gets a bad rap for things, but I've been using its powers for good. I've been using it in this
Yeah.
way that actually shows me how to be more benevolent and shows me how to have more compassion,
Yeah.
writes in a way that those words resonate with me, and then
Mm,
they can get imprinted on me. And then
mm.
maybe I can learn something from it and pass it along.
100%. I mean, AI is a language model, you
Mhm.
know, and so it does what it says on the tin. You know, when I'm like, oh, when I'm trying to write to myself kindly, I'll be like, yeah, well, you're a bit of a, yeah, like I just can't give it to myself, that kind of way.
Right.
So the modeling of what empathy sounds like or something like that. And okay, so we're going to AI for it to be personalized, but before AI, I was listening to the likes of Sarah Blondin. I was listening to
Yeah.
John O'Donoghue. I was looking for the voices of
Yeah.
compassion and of kindness and of wisdom. I was using, but they were speaking not to me specifically, but that's what chat
Yeah.
does or any of the AI does. It's like, dearest Amanda, you silly little thing.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I
And I'm
have
like,
God sign off God's
oh,
letters from the big G. The big G
oh,
talks to me. So that's how
wow.
God signs its letters to me now. But it's
Oh, I
like,
love it.
it's the fact that I would even be open to any of this or even having this discussion or waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, like, what are you thinking about God? What do you think about God? That would
Mm,
just never have happened in my old life.
no.
I'm too judgmental, too much stopping myself. And I think that that's what, I mean, the gist of everything that we're talking about right now is that how I don't want to stay stuck in chaos and drama. I used to think that was very entertaining. I used to think it felt very performative for me. And it felt like I was looking at old movies that my father, my stepfather got me for Christmas. He digitized all of our home movies. I'm so performative, I can't even watch them when I was a younger child. It's like I'm
Mm,
wanting to be the star. I'm wanting the pat on the back. I'm wanting all of that. And to know that I can do that for myself now and that I don't have to be performative, really. I can like dial it down.
mm,
Chaos and drama. Um,
mm,
while I missed it when I got sober a little bit, I have to say, what the steps taught me and all the different things, poetry, listening to Sarah Blondin. I mean, she was my gateway to meditation, listening to her beautiful voice and her writing. But all of that helped become a solution, right? So John O'Donohue was a solution for you. Sarah Blondin was a solution for you,
mm,
and me too. The steps are a solution. Like there's all these different things that are now in my toolbox,
mm.
and that I don't have to stay stuck in
Mm.
a problem. There's a way
Ah,
out.
it's so true. I mean, the degree to which I was loyal to my problems, like, and the drama, and I think when we talk about, or when I would hear someone or even you talking about, drama from outside my own, because I was not working a program. I just was abstinent, and I was like, this is great, not realizing that there was a lot. Well, I did know that there was a lot going on underneath, but I was trying to fix it, you know,
Yeah.
through control. And that's a whole other show, Ricky, as they say. But so when we hear the word drama, we think big drama, arguments with the family, things like that. But I want to illustrate on the micro level
Mhm.
the drama, an illustration of me choosing drama. So again, this is in me and the, are you there, God? What? This whole like, once I was trying to get a sense of like this, it was part of this realization that for me, God or higher power is literally just better ideas than the ones I'm currently bidding for.
Right.
Anyway, I was in the kitchen and I wanted coffee, but I like oat milk in coffee. So I didn't have any oat milk. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to have tea, but I don't really want tea. I want coffee. And I was getting into a bit of a, I don't have what I don't have the way I wanted kind of a thing. And then just like floated into my consciousness, it was like, why don't you have the yerba mate tea that you love? but it didn't present it in words. What it did was it gave me a whiff of the fragrance and a sense in my body of, because when I pour that tea, there's a fragrance that hits me that kind of is an uplifting experience. So
Yes.
I was kind of like offered the uplifting experience. And in that moment, I almost swatted that idea away like it was a fruit fly, because I was like, fuck off, I'm having an argument here with, the tea and the coffee argument.
Right.
And I was about to go back into the argument and I caught myself and I was like, oh, there's me literally, being offered something else that has nothing to do with the drama and that is actually uplifting, like just another option, a solution. There's me
Yeah.
being offered a solution. And I was like, no, fuck off. I'm here in the problem. Like,
Well,
so
sometimes we like being in the problem.
it's incredible.
I don't like to admit that, but like you saying that, like if I really boil it down, I feel like I am swooping in and saving the day. I feel like I am the hero of my own story. I feel like it's funny and I get to make a joke out of it and I get to retell this story to somebody else and look at me.
Mm,
And I think that's what I just feel quieter now. I don't feel the
yeah.
desire or need to do that. It feels kind of exhausting to do that. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's so interesting to me. And I've now that once you kind of get or once what I've noticed now is that now that I kind of am tapping into it, I'm realizing, oh my God, it's just ideas. I'm noticing them more. It's my whatever you call that RAS system in the brain, reticular
Mhm.
activating system, is now kind of like onto it. And
Right.
so I was having another drama one night about, I don't know, I think it was Netflix, YouTube. I was looking for something to watch and I actually wasn't interested in anything. So I was going between things, couldn't settle on anything. And I was getting into the refresh, click, Gmail. I was getting into that. And then it was just like a little idea of like, why don't you have a bath?
Right.
And again, so easily to dismiss that. Or it'll come in and say, why don't you just go for a walk? And the dismissal, the reflex I have to dismiss the solution, I'm onto it now.
Right. Well, I think that's the God consciousness that I've read about that I didn't understand. So, like what you're saying, these things floating
Mm,
through, these
mm,
thought forms are for an economy of language, God is the word that I'm happy to use now. I used to use all kinds of other things and people can use whatever they want, but it's fine for me to use that three-letter word to say that's when God's coming in. And
mm,
as someone who has been baptized 3 times, trying to always find the thing, I finally found the thing when I went to 12 step. And while it's not a religious group, it is a way of thinking that was different for me. And so when I would go to these meetings, Amanda, and this relates to solution because I was getting in my own way as well. And I also didn't want to be fake in recovery. And I don't want
mm,
to say things that I didn't truly believe. I felt like I've already come this far that I got to my bottom with alcohol, my bottom with my emotions, bottom with my marriage, bottom with my life. I no longer want to say something I don't believe. I want to be honest. And so somebody told me in the program, well, just make a fence post your higher power. And I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. They're like, well,
mm.
make anything as long as it's not you. And I'm like, okay, I still, don't want to do that. And I
Yeah.
went out with a woman to coffee and I said, I don't understand this. I don't understand how you do it. And she was like, just think about your higher self. What would your higher self do? And I said, oh, so I'm God. And she's like, well, not exactly, but let's just go with that. What would your highest self do? You always have a voice that's telling you something, but do you listen to it? And I was
Mm,
like, sometimes, not often. And she's like, I think that's the God voice. And when
mm,
she kind of explained it like that, I was like, okay, maybe I can do that. And then I think because of your beautiful last name, I think that's why I hope this resonates with you. When I was in a meeting early on, when I was still trying to find a higher power, a woman in the room said the acronym GRACE over drama,
mhm.
GOD.
Yeah.
That hit me in the heart, and I thought, oh, when I choose the act of grace over drama, that's actually me choosing a pause.
Mm,
It's just the pause. Grace over drama is just another way to say, wait, hold on a minute.
yeah.
And when I can take a few seconds, even just a few seconds, to collect myself and go, I'm making this choice not to be dramatic. I'm going to take a more solid ground. I'm going to be less reactive. I'm going to try to respond to this. I'm going to take a hot shower. I'm going to go take a nap. Like all those things. Grace over drama was the little mantra that got me through so much of
Mm.
my recovery. And it got me to a place where I could find solutions. They didn't just fall out of the sky. Sometimes they were there right in front of me, like you said, but we don't see them. We can't quite identify
Mm.
with them because we haven't operated in that way in a long time. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Yeah, like it's just,
yeah,
oh, there it is. It's been here all along. And I think
yeah,
that's what the I have this quote from Glenda, right? When Glenda the Good Witch tells Dorothy, you've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself.
yeah,
Like that was what was so profound in the movie.
yeah.
Um, that the witch is like, it's always been within me. And same for me, same for you, but we just had to get there on our own time
Mm.
or
Yeah,
God's time.
yeah. We're just fighting for dear life in the meantime.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is. It's so much more subtle than the bells and whistles and clouds parting and all those things that um,
yeah.
for some reason is embedded. So I wanted to talk about so we've known each other 8 years. We have
Yes.
met in person 4 times.
Ah, that's right.
We have met in Oakland, California. We've met in Portland, Oregon. We've met in Dublin, Ireland. And we
That's
have
right.
met in Tuscany.
That's right. That's right.
So the last of those meetings actually was in Dublin when you were here, and we had the 24 hours together in the same room in the same bed with our 4 a.m. Like let's talk to God on the computer. um, but we went for a lovely meal, and on our way back to the hotel, we started talking about kind of the idea of solutions, and I was mentioning things like there are certain it's kind of like it's catching on now that it's almost like the unnecessary the unnecessary the lack of I can't know the words I'm looking for the no stop and take two um
And
no need for the no need for drama, whatever that would sound like eloquently, that's what I
yeah,
mean. So I was telling about the sleeping arrangements in our house, let's say, of me being a very, very light sleeper
yeah,
and my husband being a very deep sleeper and a snorer,
mm,
and how that had become a problem. And at first, but it actually, we just sleep in separate rooms now. And I have embraced that as okay because, there might be a bit of a stigma about,
mhm.
because you're supposed to sleep in the same room and there's something wrong. But we were talking about different things and just being like, you said something to me along the lines of like, I'm so done with problems. Like, I am all for the solutions now. And I was like, yeah, like all the things. Also, it's like the underwear, even, wearing the underwear. I'm like the bra and or whatever kind of like Spanx or whatever it is that we're supposed to be wearing. How
Right.
long am I going to sit in the problem of not being comfortable in them until I just let myself,
Yeah,
wear the granny pants
yeah.
and,
Well,
and,
you
and let it be a solution?
well, you talk about this all the time, Amanda, in your teachings, and I know I do too. Permission. It's like, when are we going to grant ourselves the permission to have solutions? I don't have to stay stuck in the problem. Although the problem sometimes can seem, like I said, there's a humor to it, or there's a some kind of now I'm at a loss for a word. It's very intoxicating, like you said. It's very fun to kind of go, oh, and make fodder of it. I mean, you're funny. Your father was a comedian. You're very funny, but at what expense? And how expensive is it to my emotional sobriety? Like I no longer drink, but I've shared often that I get drunk on many other things, and problems can be one of those
Mm,
things where we just
mm,
keep getting drunk. And sometimes it takes me having a conversation with another person in recovery, usually my sponsor or another friend that understands this. And I don't, that's not as entertaining to me anymore. It's kind of boring.
mm,
And because if we talk to friends or people that are still stuck in a problem and they call you and it's the same problem 12 times, and you're
yeah.
like, okay, this is boring. I no longer can listen to this because you're not trying to get to a solution. You're not trying to solve it. You
Mm,
kind of just wanting to be stirring and stuck in it. And sometimes that's to no fault of their own. They're on
mm,
their own emotional journey where they have to figure out what that is for them.
mm,
Um, but I no longer want to stay stuck there with other people. I don't think I can. It's not good for my emotional sobriety. So I can be of support. I can offer a solution if somebody wants it. I ask my boyfriend all the time, can I offer a suggestion or a solution? And sometimes he says no.
yes.
And I have to be okay with that and not take that personally. It's like he's not ready for that yet. He has his
Yeah.
people, he has the people he
Mm,
can talk to. I'm not his sponsor, and nor do I want to be. But
mm,
that
yeah.
yeah, how long do you want to stay in the problem? And some
Mm,
people, I mean, that's a good question to ask ourselves. A week? Do you want to have a pity party for a week? Okay, go ahead.
yeah.
I had a rough week last week, but I hit 10 years of sobriety. I got in a car accident.
Yeah.
Lots of hard things happened, but it didn't ruin my week. There's a solution, there's an insurance adjuster. Now it's going to be a little bit of a pain.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that can be solved. There's a solution to that. Not great,
Yeah.
but just it's not the end of days where everything used
Mm,
to feel like
mm.
it was the end of the world and
Oh,
doesn't feel that way now.
yeah. And for anyone listening whose mind is going towards, oh, but does that mean I have to leave my marriage? Come back. Like come back over here for a second. Let's practice this on the small things because
Yeah,
I think sometimes we will do that. We'll be like, the thing I'm trying to control, oh, does that mean? And we will just want to fix the big thing, but
or
that's
burn it
not
down.
practice it on the small things. So another example of a solution and choosing grace over drama. And I have your sticker right behind my camera here, of the grace over drama thing that you sent me. Over Christmas, I broke a tooth
Mm.
and I went to the dentist on the 2nd of January, only to be handed a quote for €4,000 to get it fixed. Right? Now there's a problem.
Yeah.
There's a problem. So I spent about 4 days, you know, complaining about the problem, like just being like, "Oh, biggest problem in the universe I have right now. Who'd like to hear about my problem? Wait till I tell you about my problem." And I was just like making a big thing, almost like a big placard. Ask me about my problem, and having a good old rant and rave about it, until I realized, well, I'm in pain, and I can't really, I can't afford to just sit here, not accepting that solution and complaining about it. So what am I going to do? So I booked myself a dental appointment in Budapest,
Ah.
and I booked myself a flight, and I booked myself an Airbnb, and you know, I, and then I was like, I think I just created a solution. I think now it still wasn't like it didn't get me off the hook. So here's the thing. I would rather my tooth have not cracked at all,
Right.
And so the first few days, that's what I was raging about. I was like, what did I eat? How did that happen? Was it because I grinded my teeth? So I was trying to do the drunk Superman thing, which is my code for time travel, because in Superman 3, he gets, Lois dies and Superman can't deal with it. And so he time travels back to save her. Right
Mm.
now,
Right.
that's what I'd like to be able to do. Time travel back to the, you know, time, just the sandwich
Yeah.
um, that I bit into. That probably didn't, but break my tooth, but was the last straw for my tooth. But anyway, that's usually what I want to do. I spend my time in the problem arguing with its existence at all.
Yeah. I
And
think that's a phase though, right? That's part of the phase. Phase
yeah,
one.
phase one, yeah, yeah. Ask me about my problem. We'll call that the ask me about my problem phase. And then, of course, because it was painful, which is the good metaphor for the recovery, it's also what got me in the rooms. It was painful. I can't live like this. It
Yeah.
hurts, to even do anything. So, booked my thing. Still had to pay. So it was still an unexpected, unplanned financial inconvenience.
Yeah.
But that's when I started to do the I'm proud of myself for the solution. I respect myself for the solution. I'm grateful that there is a solution. I still have to pay money I would rather not pay and make a trip I'd rather not. It's still inconvenient,
Yeah.
but it's not, I was just so proud of that, accepting, yeah, doing and I'm just back. I just got back last week and I navigated the whole thing on my own. I obsessively
Yeah.
walked the streets of Budapest on Google Maps before I got there because I was like, if I'm solo traveling, I need to look like a local when I get there. I don't want to look like someone who doesn't know where they're going.
Right.
But I think as well that for me, that so much of that being in the problem and arguing against the reality that is here and wishing it away, so that's how I spend my energy, wishing the problem wasn't a problem, instead of looking for solutions. And the part about surrender is that, like, sometimes I think that I am afraid to surrender to reality for fear of what that surrender is going to look like to the outside world. I'm afraid of my solutions because I'm afraid of being judged for my
Mm.
solutions instead of overcoming the problem. In other words, when you even dig down, like, what does that even mean? But it's like, instead of dominating the problem and basically erasing it,
Yeah.
being Superman.
Hmm.
So, isn't it so interesting? Like, I realize that I resist surrender and I resist solutions for fear of what it will look like to the outside world, who used to be, remember, my higher power.
All full
Now,
circle.
yeah, now I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't have to give a fuck about what the outside world thinks about me because my higher power would never do that.
Yeah.
My higher power would never look at my solution and go, ugh, really?
How clever and creative your solution too, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
you have got on a plane, yes,
yes.
booked accommodations, figured out Google Maps. Like you did a lot of different things in order to make this happen.
While being newly abstinent, working in a new
Yeah.
program because it has taken me a full year to establish a firm, like a peaceful abstinence.
Yeah. Well, your step 11, I imagine, if people don't know what step 11 is, it's like prayer, meditation, and self-examination. So I know you're good at self-examination, right? You're a person who is introspective and can look at yourself. But now you're looking at it with a new pair of glasses, right? And you have
Mm.
different, it's looking different to you with a new set of glasses of what the solution is. And I
Yeah,
think that's the thing about for me when 12 steps came into my life, I was like, oh, I can apply these to so many different things. Whereas before I didn't have those. I didn't have that set of glasses. And once I got it, it's not like the world just changed, but everything came into focus in a different way that I could find the solution or even be open to it. Um, yeah,
yes.
I had a similar tooth problem. I won't get into it. Same timeline as you. Last week I went back to go get a third crown to try to do it for the third time and it cracked again. So, but
You need to go to Budapest.
I didn't go to Budapest. But what I did do in December before the renewal date for insurance is I applied for dental insurance finally. I haven't had it in 20 years. And I thought, well, this won't help me with this time probably, but it will help me in the future. And I've had
Mm.
trouble all this time. So maybe it will help me in the future. And it's a solution that will maybe I'll be thankful for, a year or two down the line. But I
100%.
finally was like, I have to take action because there's that Joan Baez quote that I love, action is the antidote to despair. And
Mm.
when I feel like I can do something, I feel powerful, and
Mm.
talking, but just like Glenda said, like the power is within me. I just have to
Yeah,
find it and I have to be able to
yeah.
do it. I'm going to bring up the Wizard of Oz one more time, Amanda. Surrender Dorothy is what the Wicked Witch wrote in the sky, right? And it's in this black ink in the 30s, and it was kind of this really state of the. Came home and like researched it like a dork, like I do, And but the original version of the film said surrender Dorothy or die. And then it
Oh
said
gosh.
WWW, the Wicked Witch of the West. And so when the movie premiered, they deleted that part or die. But it made me think about our programs of recovery and when we don't surrender and when we fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it, that could lead to death. Several of my friends have died from drinking too much. My
Mm,
brother-in-law at the age of 49, you know, it's like
mm,
I don't want to be too proud anymore. I don't want to be
mm.
too worried what other people think. I don't want to be too perfect. I just kind of dialed it down a little bit. And that can sound maybe to some, maybe that'll sound like, oh, you're dulling yourself. No, I'm more vibrant than I've ever been. I'm more at peace. I have more serenity in my life than I've ever had. And
Yeah.
that feels like victory. Yeah, that feels good.
Oh gosh. Yeah. And I know that, with the alcohol, the safe, it was a matter of protecting myself from, permanent harm, let's say. But with the other thing, I was dying a slow spiritual death.
Yeah,
I was literally just dead inside, and doing my best to save face and, keep the show on the road and all
yeah.
the things. Um, and I pulled the plug. And funny, when I was in Tuscany and I knew who we did the tarot cards and the card,
Mhm.
the card that I picked for now, for right then and there, was the nickname of the card is the Lord of Abandoned Success. Yeah, the Nine of Swords.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do then. I knew instantly. I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to abandon my pursuit of success here.
Well, and you took action on that
Instantly.
straight
I
away.
knew straight away. I knew straight away. I never reinstalled
Wow.
the Instagram app. I never went back on Instagram after that.
Yeah.
Um, and the Lord of Abandoned Success. Yeah, it was a crisis point card. It was like, you're so fucked. And, you must abandon success because you're abandoning yourself.
Mhm. That's
This
right.
chasing of the carrot is, I'm so deep in self-abandonment right now.
Yeah.
Um, and then my card of the year its nickname was Bowing to Change.
Wow. I like that you kept your cards. Some people would shuffle those back in and try to get something,
Oh no.
different. But when we can accept, surrender, accept what
Yeah,
it is, accept the
yeah,
lesson, that's
yeah.
how I deepen my recovery. That's how you've deepened your
Mm,
recovery.
mm,
Um, yeah,
yeah. It was so interesting how that, those cards came to me in that time because up until then, the metaphorical cards I was pulling in my brain every morning and every night was try harder, try harder, try harder,
Mm,
you know?
yeah, it's
Um,
exhausting.
Oh my gosh, so exhausting. And yeah, walked into the rooms. Well, we arrived home on a Friday. I walked into the rooms on a Sunday and just cried my eyes out,
Mm,
and but I finally kind of felt like, yeah, I belong here. After being in the rooms, like after walking into several meetings over the years and walking out and going, these people are crazy. Like as in like what an overreaction. I was like all judgmental about it. But again, I wasn't ready to surrender.
oh,
Um
that's
and
that
even
R. It's important to be ready.
yeah,
And if
yeah.
you're not, you're not.
And that's step one. Like one of the podcasts, one of the episodes that I recorded here, I was going to call it Step Zero. I didn't. So, listener, if you're looking for it, it's called Why Change Feels Impossible or When Change
Mm,
Feels Impossible. And I talk a lot about the pain of being in step zero for so long.
yeah,
And I think that I work well with clients who are in step zero because I've been there for so long.
yeah,
Um, and they're like, "Oh, you must be sick listening to me going around in circles with this, and it's taken so long." And I'm like, "We have no control over this. This is divine timing."
that's right.
And yeah, like if it was up to you, you'd be done with this, right? Yeah, so it's not up to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Step zero is super important. And that's all
mm,
part of the process too, right? Like
mm,
getting ready, finding the things that don't work,
mm,
finding your people, your groups, community, like whatever that is, your step zero is fertile ground.
Oh
Fertile
yeah.
ground. And when you're ready to move on, you'll know.
Mm.
You'll know.
It, for me as well, it was very much bull in a china shop energy, step zero, because I was walking and just hating. I was just getting triggered all the time. I'd be walking
Yeah.
in and into places and just be like, she's a cunt, she's a bitch, I fucking hate him.
Yeah.
And like just nothing but complain because again, I wasn't out of steam yet. I'm a great fighter. The fight, flight, or freeze response.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a fighter. I
Yeah.
will fight to the death. Um, and
I'm
that's
a
kind of what
flight.
happened.
I'm gonna hit the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess what do I do now? Gosh, when I get it, I still have the instinct to fight.
Hmm.
But I do notice when I'm activated because I have been through a kind of, let's say, a thing over the last few weeks with a certain person and all the activation that comes up around it. And I have not once been impulsive and sent the, well,
Hmm.
suit yourself text, you know?
Right.
I have sat in the bath and just been like, waiting for inspiration.
Mm.
And I have gone for the walks. And sometimes it'll be like a week of, hello, God must be on holidays. God is in Budapest. There's definitely, nobody home kind of a thing. And then just one day sitting in the bath listening to Conan O'Brien, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I never thought of that as an option. That's a really good idea. So when I do get that I say it out loud, I'd be like, that's a really good idea,
Yeah. Well,
to
that
kind of
I
celebrate
think
it.
I think that when you get those really good ideas or you're listening to Conan, it's probably too, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me at least, I've set the foundation to the day. I do those routines. I do those little things, the cup of tea, right? The gratitude list. I write out my fears. I write out my resentments. I write out what I want to invite in. I do these things so that they start just setting up this foundation for me so that I can come up with solutions. But if I don't do that and I don't pray or I don't meditate and I don't do it every day, to be honest with you, I don't. I forget. Sometimes I just get up like a shot and I'm late for something. I pay for it though. I do have to say I pay for it in other ways. And I find that I can get to solution quicker if I've taken care of my spiritual needs first thing in the morning or whatever time you wake up, whoever you work, however you work. But if I try to do it later in the day, yeah, sure, it's fine to do it later in the day. But it's almost as if it's a an SOS call, right?
It's
Whereas
reparative
before,
then.
yeah, yes. And so waking up, just doing it as a part of my routine gives me stability. And
Mm.
that allows me to access solution because when I'm not in that state of mind, I can't access it. I can't even think of it. I would need to call a friend and you say,
Yes.
hey, did you meditate today? Hey, did you take a hot shower or a nap or did you eat? Oh, I didn't
And you're
eat.
like,
Okay.
yeah, you're like, fuck off with all your good ideas. Oh, wait, sorry. Yes. Okay.
Right. So, yeah, I think feeding myself spiritually first thing in the morning and whatever that looks like. And for anybody that's listening that's like, I'm not into 12 step or that's not my jam or read poetry, read O'Donoghue, read Mary Oliver, make your
Mm,
own. Marie Howe, a poet, Marie Howe, has said on the On Being show with Krista Tippett, I heard her say, do every act as a prayer. And I
mm,
was like, what does that
mhm,
mean? What does that mean? And I wrote it down, and it's like,
mm,
do the dishes like it's a prayer, do your
mm,
laundry, do it with intention, and do it with this beautiful um, returning to yourself. Just give yourself that time and space to be kind to
mm,
yourself. And I
mm.
thought, oh, okay, a prayer doesn't have to necessarily be a thing that it's in church or something and it's scripted. I can do my own. And now I'm painting prayers, Amanda. I'm painting little prayers. Oh, I don't have them here. That I did on my retreat in San Miguel. And I do prayers. I say prayers while I'm painting just these little spots. And then I'm going to write prayers over them. And I'm working on step two. So I'm trying to find, my sponsors invited me to find a different way to think of prayer
Mm.
instead of an institutionalized way to try to think of it in a different way. So, like, we can just do whatever we want with our recovery. It's
Yeah.
so creative. Can be so creative with it.
Have you ever seen the Mexican ex voto tradition?
No.
Check that out. I
Ex
have
voto?
ex
What?
voto, yeah, it's or retablo. I have a book that was
Oh.
gifted for me. I discovered them when I was in San Diego, and I was like, "What are these? What is this?" And the host, the lady who was hosting me, I was teaching out there. She introduced me to this tradition, and I was like, how have I never heard of this?" And then in the mail a few weeks later, she sent me, "Hello, higher power,
Hmm.
sending people, putting people in my path." And it is it's fascinating. So there is, let's say it is a social role. So somebody in the town is the retablo painter, the artist. And
Okay.
what happens is people come to them with a prayer either of, you know, gratitude or help,
Hmm.
looking for help with something. And he illustrates the moment of intervention.
Hmm. Okay, I will
And
look.
there is writing over it. So yeah, check it out.
Okay,
And
I will. Thank
yeah.
you.
And now, before we wrap up,
Yes.
I will obviously include links to you because that's the other thing. Even if you're not ready, if you're not into the 12 steps, any of those things, what I will say is like, follow people. Just like do what I did with Tammy. I was listening to you for 6 months before I got the good idea to stop drinking. And, I've been in your orbit for 8 years before I got the good idea to walk into a room.
Right.
So, we both have Substacks. Like follow and flood your feed with the voices of people who are at least carrying the message, not ramming it down your throat, but
Yeah.
but are who are walking the walk, I'd say. And we know that you're on Instagram, we know that you're on Substack. You have the Ray of Light community. You offer workshops like Word of the Year. You do what's the other thing that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah,
There was
my
something
too.
else. Was there something about create or
Well, create was my word for the year last year. This year's home. And last year, I created so much and took so much action with programs and things. This year, taking kind of a back seat. I'm going to travel more, find out how to lead more retreats. I love being in person with people in community. Ray of Light community meets online every Wednesday, so we get to do that virtually. But yeah, you can follow along and just find the voices. Yeah, I have a creative recovery. Art is my way in to my morning meditation, and then everything else bloomed from there. And so that's why me and Amanda met a couple years later. And yeah, you find your people. It's pretty
yeah,
magical. Yeah.
absolutely. So that's what I would say, just observe other people on their path, and then someday that wicked witch will come out of the sky and write in big black letters, "Surrender or die," and you'll be like, "Oh, fuck off."
Or not.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going all the way to Oz. Um,
Thanks. Amanda.
Tammy, thank you so much. And I don't just mean for this
Mm.
conversation. Thank you for all of the good times we've had together.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that I have learned from you, all the laughs we've had together, the memories of swimming in Dublin Bay and, getting up at 4 a.m. to talk to God on the computer. Um,
Uh, until next time.
yes. Yeah. Where are we going to meet next?
Yeah,
Budapest, maybe. We'll have a dental date.
maybe. So exotic.
Any last words?
No, just thank you. I'm grateful for you, Amanda. I'm grateful for recovery and that we can have these conversations and that this is what brought us together. You live in Ireland, I live in Oakland, California, and here we are. The internet helps us make these connections. It's pretty beautiful. So thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tammy. Bye.
Bye.